I'm Tom Osman, and this is Whatever Comes Next, the podcast where I explore the world of underground and independent music making. And on today's episode, I am talking with Matt Stikker, vocalist, guitarist, and founding member of Portland, Oregon extreme metal group Drouth, who are going to be releasing their latest record, The Teeth of Time, this Friday, in fact, on Eternal Warfare Records. And we are here to talk about the album, talk about the band's history. Something that I don't think I've mentioned before on the podcast is that I contribute to a website called Ghost Cult Magazine. I have been doing that for a while. And not so long ago, I became the managing editor. And in my role there, I assign the reviews. And so these days, I don't write so many reviews myself because I feel like I don't have so much time in amongst everything else that I'm doing. But cool thing with assigning reviews at Ghost Cult is that there can be occasions where I hear something and I think this is awesome. I really want someone to cover it. And often enough, there is one of the members of the writing team who is someone who has the kind of tastes for that particular music. So in this instance, Ralka, shout out Ralka at Ghost Cult Magazine, was, I thought, the perfect person to review this album. And her review hasn't come out yet, but I've actually seen it. And I'm happy to discover that she was just as enthusiastic about this album as I have been listening to it. It is powerful, it's intense, it's atmospheric, really well produced, really well played. And yeah, if you like extreme metal with elements of black metal, death metal, crust punk, definitely well worth checking out. And as I brought up Ghost Cult Magazine, shout out Keefe, shout out Omar, shout out Matt, and everyone else and anyone from there who might be listening to this. And yeah, you can get the album from Bandcamp. I will put links in the description. You can follow Drouth on Instagram. And yeah, you can follow me at Tom Osman Sounds. You can go to my website, tomosmansounds.com, if you want to see what I'm making and what I've been making music-wise. And oh yeah, I'm going to run the Edinburgh Marathon on the 24th of May, and it's going to brutalize me. And I'm raising money for Scottish Refugee Council. So, you know, if you felt like making a tiny little contribution, anything would be gratefully received. I will stick a link for that in the description as well. I will play a track from The Teeth of Time. Once again, I haven't quite figured out which track it's going to be, but it'll be a banger, of course. And yeah, I'll play a little clip before the interview. I guess that's it. So, Matt Stikker of Drouth, take it away.
Hey, how's it going?
Matt, hello. Tom, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. A little bit tired, but, you know, such is life. What about you?
Same. Absolutely.
What time is it where you are?
It is 11 a.m.
And you're in Portland, right?
That's correct. Yeah, yeah.
Born and raised?
I've lived here about 20 years, so not quite. But yeah, I moved here for college about just over 20 years ago, and I've been here ever since. Yeah.
Because I've been noticing more and more, like, I would say a couple of years ago, Portland wasn't even on my radar. And then, like, on this podcast that I do, I would say that there's been, like, I don't know, like 8 bands that I've interviewed in Portland. And then sometimes as well, like, reviews come along that I do. I'm just like, shit, Portland's, like, a really cool place for metal and alternative rock. So has it always
absolutely
been like that in the time that you've been there?
Yeah, no doubt. It has. Yeah, there have always been it's a smaller city, objectively smaller than places like whatever, New York, LA, all the major cities, especially probably from coming from across the pond, different perspective on visibility wise. Maybe Portland bands haven't always been as visible as bands from other larger places, but in terms of the proportion of people here that are making music and involved in the scene, it feels like we punch above our weight. Definitely a lot of people here making really good art and music. And the city's grown a lot in the last 20 years for sure, and a lot of people have come here specifically to do that, to meet other artists and musicians, and that's only made it better. But it has always, ever since I've been here, it's always been a great place to play music. Yeah.
And is it right to say that, like, in terms of kind of major cities, the closest city to Portland would be Seattle?
Yeah, it's 2 or 3 hours away depending on traffic. So there's a bit of a relationship there
Yeah,
that has kind of ebbed and flowed over the years as well. But we are, a little bit isolated, because that's a few hours is, we play up in Seattle. Like Drouth will play up in Seattle a few times a year, but there definitely were several years where we barely played there at all. I mean, COVID was a part of that for sure.
yeah,
But actually our first show back from COVID was in Seattle. Was an outdoor show in Seattle, and that was in 2021 toward the end of the year. And at that point we hadn't played in Seattle probably for at least I think 3 years, which is a long time. But the scene up there is phenomenal. There's people booking awesome shows and some really great bands up there, and we've been fortunate to play there pretty regularly since post COVID, and we have more shows scheduled up there, yeah, this year.
and Seattle has that reputation for being pretty wet. So how does that compare to Portland?
Yeah, pretty the same climate wise, more or less the same. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I spent quite a lot of years living in Glasgow. I'm originally from Australia, but I spent a lot of years in Glasgow in Scotland, and Glasgow rains a lot. So I feel like I can relate at least on that level.
Yeah, it definitely. I don't know how it compares specifically to Glasgow. I know Glasgow is a pretty wet. Scotland is a pretty wet place, but yeah, it's a gloomy atmosphere. I love it. I have friends and family members that visit, and they tell me they wouldn't be able to deal with it. And I've known people who moved up here, and after a year or two, just weren't interested in the gloom anymore. But I love it. I'm not a warm weather person, so
Yeah.
it's nice to go outside and kind of hike and experience nature and do a lot of stuff in like a comfortable. It's a nice, cool, 50 degrees most of the fall, winter, spring. This time of year, it's great. It just rains, and I just play music and go for hikes.
And I'm wondering, like, how much do you think that kind of environment feeds into the music that you make? Because you talk about liking to go on hikes, and that kind of makes a lot of sense to me because obviously now is it Druth or Drouth? Drouth.
I mean, we're not particular. We say a drought, but I know the word can be pronounced one of a couple of ways, and so I've heard pretty much all of them at this point.
If you say Drouth, I'll say Drouth.
That's
So,
all right.
like when I've like listened to, well, first of all, forthcoming album, The Teeth of Time. I love it. I think it's amazing. Like
Thank
it's
you.
so the first time I listened to it, it was like so intense that it was almost too much. Like it's just kind of this immediate barrage. And then as I listen to it more, then I start to pick out the dynamics. You've got these great different like guitar tones that come through. Like I don't even know how to describe it in a technical way, but you'll have like sort of a melody and another melody, and like one will shift while the other one stays the same. And you get this great kind of offsetting of the melodies, which I think is really, it has like a kind of emotional impact
Thank you.
that I
Yeah, I
really
think that
appreciate.
I'll credit to Billy Anderson who engineered the album for us, for helping us kind of get. I mean, maybe I noticed it a little bit. It was something that we were conscious of in recording the album, that there's a little bit more of that layering, more depth of sound, and
Mm,
um, more kind of variety of tones, and kind of more clean guitars layered in certain parts. Just a little bit more conscious kind of sculpting of the guitar sounds on this album this time around compared to our previous releases, which that's why we decided to record with Billy, and he helped us kind of achieve
yeah.
some of that. It's probably testament to the fact that at this point, we've also been playing together with John, our other guitarist, has now been in the band for 7 years. So we've had a lot of time to get comfortable with one another's style, and
Yeah.
we have a very balanced. Neither one of us is the lead. Neither one of us is the rhythm. We do take turns kind of doing the melody lines, and that's something we consciously kind of do. So I'm glad you picked up on it. Thank you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, because I think that's not like I hadn't really thought about it like that, but now that you put it that way, like when I listen to to the album, I don't like think of it as like, oh, here's the rhythm guitar and here's the lead guitar. It's kind of this like a swirling mass of the instrumentation, and it almost makes it kind of symphonic because it sort of swirls around in these different ways where you don't kind of go like, oh, here comes the guitar solo. Like obviously there are solos in there, but I love the way it's all sort of fused together. Now, obviously, you've got different elements to your sound, and like having listened through, to your different releases, I can hear how, you sort of emphasize different aspects of your sound from release to release. But I guess you can safely say there is quite a large black metal component to it, and you are fittingly
Yeah.
wearing a Battery t-shirt, which is kind of like as classic as black metal can get. And I was
For
just
sure.
thinking, like, to the point about the weather and about being out in nature, like I kind of think black metal sort of has that association in that sort of classic sense of like the elements and like being out in the snow. You don't necessarily have like a snowy environment, but I kind of wonder how much does the sort of the natural world impact on the music that you're making in Drouth, would you say?
It does, no doubt. I mean, I think it kind of reflects both, um, kind of the more atmospheric components of it, the more
Yeah.
the kind of the structure and the length of the compositions and all that is very, yeah, it's indebted to more black metal type of influences, and for sure, just when it comes to the lyrics, especially I think I write lyrics from a perspective of very kind of focused on the natural world over the man-made world, and that's also reflected in the music, and that's where I feel a lot of influence when I'm out walking, a lot of walking, hiking, just being outside. Like that's where my mind works best, and a lot of ideas come to me, while I'm out, walking, hiking around, in the park, not outside of my house, outside of the walls, under the sky. And I think a little bit there's that, and then I think there's like a tension that we like this between that and the more kind of the intensity of the upfront intensity of, you know, existing in the man-made world,
Yeah.
that is, kind of grinding on your soul a little bit, and the kind of the frustration that we kind of deal with. I think that those two poles kind of both inform what we do, and I think, it's not really a conscious thing,
Yeah.
uh, in a way that we don't construct our music in a specific way where we're going to take one cup of this and one cup of that and a teaspoon of this, but we do, I think, all kind of feel that tension, and that informs everything that we write together. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, in terms of the songwriting, how much are you bringing to the band versus you sort of constructing the songs together?
I bring arrangements to the band. I write a lot of the riffs. I write, on this record, I would say the vast majority of the riffs originated with me messing around. But we have a pretty, it's a group process. There's a way in which everything that I bring to the band transforms, and takes new life and is added to and subtracted from, and I bring a kind of a skeletal structure, and then we all work on ripping it apart and adding our own, different flavors to it. I don't write any parts for anyone else.
Mm.
I try to come in with a suggestion, a prompt, kind of an idea. Once in a while, I'll have an idea for like a, two guitar type of thing that I want to do, or a specific spot where, hey, we need to have like, a little bass run here, do a drum fill here. But when it comes to actually writing out the parts, the only person whose parts are really written by me are my own, and everyone else kind of will build along to the skeleton, that I bring in, and other guys in the other guys in the band do offer suggestions and do have their own parts and do bring ideas in as well. I would say for this album in particular, it was, a lot of it originated with me, but yeah, again, I don't take credit for writing the songs. It is a group.
Yeah.
All the songs are written by us as a group.
And I was thinking, like, in terms of maybe my personal favorite track on the album, I reckon the last track, Exalt Ye Flagellant, is probably my favorite. Like, it's so epic, but in a kind of not in a over the top, overblown way, but like sort of like what I was mentioning before with the sort of emotional impact of it. You've got this way of kind of building and building the tension. And obviously with that last track, it starts off quite slow, almost more kind of doomy or sludgy, and then it has this more intense passage. Well, maybe intense is the wrong word, but faster passage through a lot of
Sure.
it, and then it
Yeah.
slows down again. And I love that kind of dynamic that you have with it. I was
Thanks. Yeah.
wondering from your point of view and like from the band's point of view, because a lot of this is technical, like it's you've got this great combination of it being very impactful and visceral but also being quite technical. Were there any parts or any particular tracks that were more of a challenge than others to actually nail down in the recording process?
I would say during the recording process, yeah, I mean, a couple of the tracks, and we recorded. There's additional material as well from the session that will eventually come out, but that we didn't feel was suitable for this specific album. And there are, a couple of the faster, moments from a lot of the songs. I'm having trouble thinking of specific tracks, but there were definitely times where we were pushing the intensity, pushing the speed, and the clarity with which, we could cleanly play stuff because it's really important that it be audible. I mean, the intensity is really important, but with a lot of the stuff that we write, there is a complexity, at least in terms of the instrumentation, the arrangement, where I'm playing an arpeggiated, you know, chords, or maybe John is playing like a melody line and I'm playing an arpeggio, and Pat is playing really fast, and I'm trying to keep up as fast as I can, but there's like a technical limit to how fast I can get, up and down the strings. So um there were a couple moments where we took a few takes because we knew what we went in. We had BPMs charted out for how fast we wanted the songs to be. We demoed the
Mm,
stuff like really, really roughly in the practice space. Knew where they needed to be, knew the level they needed to be at, and the speed that they needed to be at to feel right, and then to nail that cleanly. At a couple of points was a little bit challenging for sure, but we tried to prepare. I could say there were a couple of songs that were maybe easier. I think the False Grail was the last track that we actually put together when we were writing the album. The very last one, I think we finished writing it about maybe 6 weeks before we went into the studio.
mm.
And that one came together really, really fast. It kind of it started as an idea of like, what if we just I've got these couple of musical thoughts, and we could just plug them together and see if it works. And if we don't, if it's not ready to record by the time we go in, it's not a big deal. It's fine. But that turned out to be one of the stronger tracks, all of our, one of our personal favorites in on the entire album. And that one came together really easily. That one wasn't too tough, and the recording process for that one was really smooth. Whereas there were some other, songs, longer songs. Through a Glass Darkly is a long song, talking about those arpeggios and trying to nail those cleanly. And the extended part in five, that's kind of the whole bridge section, or the sort of
Mm.
second act of the song. That took us a while to get locked in, to really get the rhythm locked in, and get the drum parts all synced up, and the everything about that, writing and playing in five was, a little bit unusual for that length of time. But we play around with time signature and stuff as well. We like incorporating those kind of progressive elements into the sound. So it was fun, but the period of preparation, shall we say, for
Yeah.
before we went into the studio was longer. We try to be ready. At the point we go into the studio, we want to have everything tightened up, and leave room for some extemporizing and some experimentation, but we try to have everything dialed in before we go in.
Yeah. I guess, for most bands, the days of like a kind of a Guns N' Roses or Metallica with a gigantic label behind them, and you can go like, oh, we're going to go into the studio and we're just going to like see what happens for a few weeks. Like you do have to be economical with how much time you're going to be spending because everything
Yeah,
costs
yeah.
money.
It's true, and there are bands, I know bands that go in with, everyone has approaches recording in a different way, and for a lot of bands, it is beneficial to not over tighten everything, to have there be a component of looseness and a feeling of spontaneity to it, and
Yeah.
and we try to maintain some of that. A lot of that is in, my vocal performance is something that is a little bit looser. I like juxtaposing that, not doing my vocals really strictly, on the beat, having a little bit more of an unhinged quality to it that only comes with that kind of more spontaneous attitude. And
Yeah.
I try not to overwrite, solos wherever possible. And working with Billy this time, we had a little bit more time, a little bit more budget, and a little more time to do some of that kind of experimentation with layered kind of guitars, throwing in, hey, what if we do another guitar here? What if we throw in? We had Eva Vaughn play some viola on it on a few of the tracks. She plays Anissa Nordal, and had her come in and throw in a little viola, and that was kind of a spontaneous expression. Some of the other, um, you know. Doubling of guitars and layering of stuff was just like in the moment. We didn't chart everything out
Mm.
super cleanly, try to leave a little bit of room, but also trying to go in there with the budget, as you say, and trying to make sure that we are clicking and very tight on the moments across the record where we need to make sure that we're locked in, so that intensity comes through but doesn't lose the complexity of the riffs.
Yep. So you've mentioned Billy Anderson a couple of times now, and that's like, a pretty exciting name to be associated with. There's obviously like he's recorded so many albums, but like for me personally, I think of like Swans, Mr. Bungle, Neurosis, Sleep, I Hate God. So like for you as a music fan, before you recorded with him, what did you kind of associate with him as far as the music that he's been involved with?
I mean, just his accumulated experience. That was a big draw. I mean, he's worked with also when you name kind of all of those bands and all the other stuff. We could name all the other bands that he's done a lot. Aglock, Leviathan, so many other bands that he's worked with and that he's produced, and that all he's able to working with him, we knew that he would be able to provide a little room for us to do some of that, you know, experimentation. Not to repeat myself, but his experience working with different bands and working with bands that do have different sounds and different approaches. You think
Mm,
about Sleep and Leviathan, two very different bands with different sounds, but he's worked across a broad spectrum of metal bands and is able to make them all sound good. And so we knew that pulling our influences personally through all of us, through a lot of the bands that he's worked with and friends that we have in common and people we know, and just him being local here in Portland as well. That all of that informed us, and we knew that he was obviously, if you have the opportunity to work with somebody who's got that much experience, you take
yeah.
it.
And so you mentioned quite early on that you sort of like you give him credit for certain aspects of the sound of the album. Like you've obviously been doing this for a while. You've had the band since I know that originally you were called Contempt, but
Right.
essentially it's like from around about 2012, right?
That was Contempt,
That was
yes. And
Contempt,
then
yeah.
and so we changed the name to Drouth. Pat, our drummer Pat Fiorentino, joined the band in 2014. And the first EP is from 2015, specifically Drought. That's when we
That's when
changed the
you're
name.
Drought.
So
Okay.
it's 10 years of Drought this year, which is a long time. Yeah.
So you've got a bunch of experience, and I understand as well, like I think for you and for everyone in the band, you've all had a number of other different musical projects. So like from all of that experience that you've had, how do you kind of identify when you listen to the album now what Billy Anderson gave the recording that you wouldn't have had otherwise?
There's a certain breadth to the sound. There's just more going on. More instrumentation, more, and that is due to Billy and just due to our as well, our determination going into the process, that we wanted to make that more of a feature, that we wanted to bring in our friends Lori Sue and Christy from Ludacra to do some vocals. We wanted to bring in Eva to do some viola. We wanted to, there is um, a couple of songs, there's like a piano note layered into that it's buried in the mix. There's some sounds that we created in the studio, a little bit of keyboard synth stuff that's kind of low in the mix at certain points. There's a little bit more, which is none of which we had on any previous album. The previous albums, which I'm still obviously very proud of and have a specific kind of intensity that I'm still proud of, that I still think is sounds really good and suits the songs. Um, but we didn't have any of that other instrumentation. We didn't bring in an acoustic guitar at any point. We didn't do any of that stuff. Whereas for this one, we knew we wanted to bring in some of that, so we came in with those ideas, and then what Billy did was he was able to take that stuff and make it all sound cohesive, and bring it all together into a whole. Yeah.
Yeah, and not make it sound kind of like too busy where you can't sort of get the distinction between the different instruments, like the subtleties of the tones.
Right, and to not let us go overboard with, like, this should be lower. Yeah, where
Yeah.
we're going over, we're sitting with him in the mixing room, and we're kind of having a dispute of like, well, this should be louder, this should be quiet, and we went over mixing with Billy with a very, fine tooth comb, and that's his style, is to work with bands really closely on the mix. And at the end of the day, we are really happy with how it sounds. I don't think anything sounds out of place. I think the moments where those elements do come in, they sound natural. It
Yeah.
doesn't, there isn't just suddenly acoustic guitar or suddenly viola. Like those elements are interwoven into the sonic, you know, uh, tapestry of the music. Not to be too grandiose, but
No, I would definitely say so. Definitely, I would agree with that. Another thing that I wanted to mention, which I think is a really cool feature of the album and the band in general, is the artwork. And am I right in thinking that you have always done the artwork and also for like tour posters? Because I've seen various other images that look of that style.
yes, I've always done all the art for the band, including for Contempt for the initial stuff.
Yeah.
It didn't start out that way, or with that idea that I would, I'm not trying to be a control freak about what we do, but it just ended up that everyone's happy with the work that I do, so I continue doing it. But it's important to me also, as the art that I do for the band is the most personal art that I do. I'm a full-time
Mm.
artist. I work on
Ah,
commission full time. So I do a lot of work for other bands, and a lot of work for all kinds of different beer labels, skateboards, you name it. But
okay.
I take this work differently because it is so personal, because it's representing, my own musical output as well, my own, a different sort of creative output, and merging those. So I
Yeah,
put a lot of time and effort into it. Not to say that I don't for other stuff, but there's a certain pressure that I feel internally to make it, as exceptional as I can. And looking back on the work that I've done for it, I'm proud of all the stuff that I've done for the band, but this particular piece for the cover art of the Teeth of Time is the most labor intensive, and the
I can
largest
believe
piece
that.
that I've done for the band to date. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think like going through what you've got, and I would say this is the sound as well. Like, I agree with you that the forthcoming album is sort of it's the most ambitious, we could say, of what you've done. But I do think even going back to the original Contempt release, like you came with a sound that I would say was pretty fully formed. Like that is a really impactful record.
Thank
And
you.
the artwork is really cool as well. And I love the fact that not you don't just have like a really impressive catalog of releases with the band, but you can look at the artwork for all of them and go, oh yeah, this kind of like it all cohesively sits together. It's you've got that style because it's all your style, but also kind of like the tone and the mood of it. It all feels like it fits together. But yeah, the latest artwork. Tell me about how that came together. And am I right? Like this is not just I'm not just having a hallucination. I am seeing a face in the middle of
Oh
this,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's
yeah. That's I'm glad that it is visible, but somewhat subtle. Yeah, I've had a couple other people ask me that. Is that meant to be like a skull? Yeah, absolutely, it is. Yeah. I'm glad that's not all that people see, because I wanted it to sit comfortably with all the elements. But yeah, that was. I think that initially I wanted to challenge myself to work on a larger scale, and to do
Mm.
something really big. And the original art is about 30 inches, centimeters. How many centimeters? 60 centimeters, something
It's
like
all
that.
right.
It's I
I've lived in countries that have different units of measurement. I'm
terrible.
lost. Inches,
Yeah,
like
it's
centimeters. It's fine.
about that big across. Yeah, it's close to a meter across, I guess that you would say. And working at that scale is a little bit of its own challenge. Just from what I'm used to, a lot of the work that I do is meant for formats that are um, labels or t-shirts or things that either physically have printing limitations as to how fine the detail can be, or just
Mm.
simply are intended to be reproduced at a smaller size, so those details just will be lost even if they're there, they won't be visible. But working on album covers is one format that I really, I do enjoy, and enables me to work at a bigger size, because when you buy the LP, maybe not as much when you look at it, on your phone, on Spotify or Bandcamp or whatever, but when you do buy the LP in a physical format, it's nice and big and you really can see all of those details. So I
Yeah.
get to lavish a little extra time and attention doing it. And so I really wanted to challenge myself this time to kind of incorporate a lot of the themes for the album, kind of lyrically going back, looking through, all the lyrics that I had written, all of the influences that went into that, and trying to incorporate those into a sort of tapestry of woe. And it was probably 120 hours or something of work stretched over a few months. It was a fair amount of work,
Yeah.
but it was rewarding to work on. So I'm proud of how it came out. So it's very gratifying to hear you say that it's impactful. So thank you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's really really cool. Like, to your point about the detail being visible more when you look at it on a larger scale. Like in the beginning, I saw when I got the promo and I was looking on my email, I'm just like, oh, this looks interesting. But then when I really wanted to get into it, I had to, open up like a high quality image and really look at it in detail and go like, wow, there's all these different elements that are going on there. And it's really cool that you can actually take the time to start picking out the details and like see the care to the attention to detail that's gone into it. It's and I think as well in this age where a lot of people do consume music digitally, it's really gratifying when bands make the effort to actually do something with the physical side of it. So you actually like you have something visual that you can really get your teeth into, that you wouldn't get if you just listen to it on Spotify.
Yeah, that's important to us. It's always been important, and that's partly why I suppose partly why I've always been the one to do the art is just because I'm Pat and I have been the two consistent members of Drouth since the beginning, but everyone who's been in the band, past and present, has always been of the same mind that we like the aesthetic, but we have it's a very personal thing. The visuals go with the music. It is a holistic, it's visuals and music together. And whether it's the, tour posters, shirts, stickers, other things that we've done, or the album covers, which are kind of the marker points of various stages of the band. Those things are really important, and I take them very seriously. Yeah, and not to say that there aren't like many classic albums with, like, shall we say, less than amazing album covers, but it's also a way that we're trying to represent ourselves, and we put a lot of thought and energy, in our creative energy into writing the music and arranging it, and these songs take time to cook. They take many ingredients, and they take a long time for us to get just right. And that's reflected in the sound, that's reflected in the structure and the arrangement of the songs themselves, but it should be reflected in the artwork, the time and care and structure that we put into the visual representation of the band. Yeah.
And having had these important dual aspects of your creative life, and like you say, you're a professional. I don't know. Would you call yourself a graphic designer? Is that what you're?
I'm an illustrator. Yeah, I mean, I do graphic design, but I feel like that undersells myself a little bit, calling myself a graphic designer, which I have in the past. But no, I'm more of an illustrator for
Okay.
hire.
So being a professional illustrator and obviously having dedicated also a lot of time to making music for many years, can you? Oh, sorry, this cat. He's very needy, so
That's all right.
I
I've
don't
got
want to
one
shut the
sleeping
door
down
on him.
here. If you notice me looking down here, it's because mine is in her bed, making little cute sleepy noises.
I wish he would make some sleepy noises.
Yeah, yeah.
But thinking about those two elements, like, can you take me back sort of to the origins of your, you know, artistry in the musical and the visual sense? Where did it all stem from?
I mean, I've always wanted to do both. I played music and and Drew since I was a kid. And I don't think at any point until I was, fully grown did I really see it as like a thing that I would continue to do and make a career and a lifetime out of doing. But gradually it just sort of became more and more apparent as I got older and, went to college and got various jobs not doing art, that it was what I really wanted to do. And during that whole time I was playing, I started playing guitar when I was, 13. I think my 13th birthday, I got my first guitar, and I'd, taken piano lessons and stuff as a kid before that. But that was always something that I just loved doing for me. I played in bands in high school and stuff, but I think what actually got me partly, what got me into the career of doing art, visual art full time, was playing in bands, playing in, my early 20s, playing in bands and playing a lot of shows and needing a flyer, draw up a flyer, go to Kinko's, print out a bunch of flyers, need friends need a flyer for their show. I'll draw up a flyer for my friends. And then that turned into friends being like, hey man, you want to do a t-shirt for my band? And then I draw a t-shirt. And at that point I was kind of had one foot in it already.
Mm.
And that's when I went back to school to learn some graphic design stuff to kind of pick up more of the tools, learn how to use Photoshop and learn how to, learn typography and all that stuff, but still working on illustration the whole time, still drawing for myself, drawing for friends, drawing for other people's bands. Gradually that
Yeah.
turned into friends of friends, and it kind of, picks up from there. And by the time and this was, understand this was over the last, 15, almost 20 years at this point, but I've been fully freelance myself since 2020. And by that point I'd built up enough of a clientele where I had a graphic design job for about 7 years before that, but still working on my artwork, still working on personal projects, still doing freelance stuff. And by that time, I was able to, jump into doing freelance work full time, no problem. But that was because it all started from playing in bands, playing in shows, doing t-shirts and flyers and stuff for friends. So that enabled, playing music enabled me, or at least drove me to pursue art as a career. But then, now playing, or excuse me, doing art for a career enables me in many ways to continue playing music, because I'm freelance, I'm self-employed, I can be flexible, I can go on tour, I can and I can do these things and not have to worry about, will I make it to work on Monday, because I'm the boss. So but I'm a terrible
Yeah.
boss, but I am the boss nonetheless.
Do you feel like where you got to in terms of the illustrating career, and you said that you got freelance in 2020, at that point were you kind of insulated from the horror of COVID in terms of the impact that had on work?
Sure, yeah, I was, but very fortunate to say so. I was, I had a job. I was an art director for a pizza place here in Portland for a long time, and doing graphic design stuff, menus and t-shirts and things for them. And it was a great job. I was ready to move on, and I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted to work from home and just focus strictly on illustration work. And that sort of happened right at the moment that COVID hit and started going into lockdowns, and all that was right at the time when I had discussed leaving that job with them. And for a moment, when COVID started, kind of froze and went, oh shit. First of all, everyone was a little, disturbed and rightly so, and frightened about, what was going on. But beyond that, kind of went, oh no, all of my friends are out of work. Nobody's, nobody has money for these kind of, for a t-shirt for your band, who's, when you got to pay rent and you don't know when your next paycheck is coming, who is going to want a shirt for their band, who's going to, and it turns out everybody wanted. 2020 and 21 were exceptionally busy. It was actually a really providential time to start getting into freelance work full time, which I had been doing, previously, but full time, because everyone was like, I'm going to take that chance. I want to make that game. that I've been thinking about making. I want to start this brewery that I've been thinking about doing. Everyone just kind of was like, I'm going to get into my passion project because I can't leave the house. And so I want to do this thing,
Yeah.
which was great, for me. And I fortunately was able to, make it through that time, healthy and financially secure when it comes to work stuff. So it worked out. Things had a way of working out, but, I don't take any of it for granted. Things are again very strange and bad right now. So as they
Yeah.
continue to get worse, it remains to be seen, how that will affect me as a freelancer, and how that will affect everybody else in the,
Yeah.
you know, all of our, you know, groceries and our expenses, and that exists for everybody no matter what they're doing. So I know we're all in it together, and I'm hoping that I'll still be able to keep doing what I love, but I don't take any of it for granted, certainly.
Do you mean to tell me that the move by your president to increase tariffs to every single country around the world isn't going to immediately lead to prosperity for all Americans?
It's weird. It's been done before, and it was in 1929, which is I don't remember what happened immediately after that. But I'm sure somebody out there will be able to fill me in. No, it's fucking awful. Yeah, no, everything here is bad. So yeah,
And not necessarily drawing any comparisons from my previous statement to this next topic, but I noticed on Bandcamp that you have this message: Drouth detests fascism, white supremacy, and nationalist ideology, which I like to see a lot. But I'm kind of wondering, you don't necessarily see that message a lot, and I wondered what kind of compelled you to make that statement. I wondered if it was connected to the fact that, black metal does sometimes have these associations of right-wing ideologies, and you sort of felt you didn't want to be associated with any of that at all and make that a clear statement.
yes, yeah, that's 100% accurate. Yes, there's we explicit political content isn't really the thrust of our lyrics, or of our image in any way. I mean, in certain ways, I mean, our outlook and our philosophy is kind of embedded in what we do, but in subtle ways that may not be very overt. And I felt in that light that we aren't, from our lyrics, our explicit message is not overtly political,
Mm,
but we wanted to make it clear that we have absolutely no fucking tolerance for fascism whatsoever. The black metal community is a place where a lot of these pieces of shit find refuge, find people who are, if not, tolerant and accepting of their horseshit, that are willing to put a blind eye toward it, willing to allow it to occur, willing to see it and not say anything about it,
mm,
willing to sort of let the statement of let the separating the art from the artists serve as a stand-in for their unwillingness to address
yeah,
any political stance. And I don't think that every band needs to or should be explicitly political. I think there's room for apolitical art, and I don't think that the art needs to be political. And I do think that you can, enjoy Wagner without, the connotations of,
yeah,
of the past. But I also think that it's just, it's purely a personal statement. It's not even a judgment of other people. I may sound judgmental in this regard, but it's only because there are so many Nazis in black metal. We do not
yeah.
want to be mistaken from them. For them, we do not want to be mistaken as being in any way tolerant of them. We don't appreciate it. We don't like the music that we love being a haven for people whose values we despise.
Quite right.
Yeah.
Um, Moving on to a slightly less fraught topic as I try to gently stop my cat from walking in front of the screen. Thinking
Yeah.
about the release of the records. So there's the vinyl. I think you got CD and you've got cassette copies coming out as well. Is that right?
We do. Yeah.
So in general, what is the best way for people to get hold of the album, whether it's pre-ordering it, at the moment or once it's released?
People can order from our Bandcamp directly, and you can order in all those formats, tape, CD, and LP. and of course as a download. And that's that's the place where it is available. We're making all these physical formats available direct. There may be some other you may be able to pick it up elsewhere. That's a little bit outside my purview, but the best place to do it is at our Bandcamp and at a show. If you're
Yeah.
able to catch us, for those of us, living here in hell, who are on our tour route, we're going to do a 3 week tour in June, and across the Western and Midwestern U.S. And coming out, seeing us live. I try to, if I go see a show and it's a band I really dig, I try to support them by buying merch. It's the most direct
Yeah.
way that you can really support a band these days, and that goes for all levels of bands, local bands and nationally touring acts. Like buying merch direct from the band is always like the best way to support them, whether you do it live or from the Bandcamp, from their direct sale is like always the best way to support artists. And so we have all that stuff available for pre-sale. The album, of course, comes out May 16th, and we'll continue to have it available in physical formats. We have the cassette is a limited edition color. And the first pressing of the vinyl is also a limited edition color that won't be repeated, but we'll continue to have those physical formats available as long as we can.
Do I remember right that the cassette's gold and the limited vinyl is silver, or it's kind of gray?
Yeah, it's actually like a translucent kind of smoke gray, or sort of a black smoke in a translucent vinyl. So yeah,
Nice.
kind of matching the artwork. And the LP has some gold printing on the back as well. It's kind of a uniform color scheme that we tried to keep across the release in all the formats.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm looking after, this is actually my mum's cat, so I'm at my mum's place right
Oh
now. But if I was back in my place in Glasgow, I would be able to point to the various vinyl that I have, but here it's a little bit more sparse.
yeah,
What
sure.
what for you personally is like, how do you like to experience music? Do you like listening to vinyl, or is that not your thing necessarily so much?
I do collect vinyl, yeah. I mean, less than probably in the past. Just the majority of my music listening, I'm here in my studio, and I do a lot of listening while I'm at work. And that's meditative for me when I'm working on a big piece, and I queue up some stuff. I listen on Bandcamp, YouTube, Spotify, as well as my LPs. Sometimes, most of the time, it's easier when I'm working and really dialed in, not to have to pause every 21 minutes to flip the record. But
Yeah.
I listen to, we've got multiple record players in the house, and I'll put records on while I'm cooking or just hanging out. And I listen, because I'm home so much. I don't tend to listen on headphones. I listen on speakers, and I
Mm.
when I go out, used to be, I mean, when I worked outside of the house and spent more time on the bus, in my car, biking, wherever. I used to listen on headphones more, and that's still an experience I really like. I like going for a nice walk and queuing up an album. I'm just putting the headphones on and going for a long walk. It's a great way to really focus and be present while you're listening to an album, giving your body
Yeah.
kind of a little bit of a physical, meditative sort of walk, and you just kind of let your mind kind of go blank and experience the album in totality. That's a great way to listen. But I do so much of my listening while I'm working, sort of a different kind of physical meditation. But in every way, I don't think there's a right way or a wrong way. And I know that there are people who are audiophiles are more into the vinyl experience, which I absolutely appreciate, and I love the physicality of vinyl. That's why we
Mm.
have it. I love collecting it. I love seeing the artwork big. I love putting it on the turntable, queuing it up. I love that component of it is really like puts you in a mindset to be ready for it.
Mm.
More so than just having a playlist going on in the background that's just sort of randomized or whatever. But
Yeah.
there's the wrong way to do it. I think it's a personal experience, and if people discover our music through Spotify or through Bandcamp recommendations, which is a great way. I found so many bands that I really like through Bandcamp recommendations. I think they actually do a really good job of kind of guiding you toward other cool stuff that you might not find otherwise when you scroll down and see that stuff at the bottom. Like,
Yeah.
Bandcamp's an awesome resource. So there's no wrong way to do it.
Yeah.
Certainly.
And I think we're fortunate that we have all these options. And
Mm.
yeah, to the topic of Bandcamp, I appreciate the fact that they do seem to be a more artist friendly platform than, say Spotify, for example, which
Yeah,
can
absolutely.
be
Yeah.
can be a great way for people to access music, but doesn't really pay the artists
Yeah,
so
that's the
much.
issue. Yeah, yeah. Yes, if you like something on Spotify, please buy something.
Yeah.
If you like, and again, for all artists, but yeah, if there's something that you listen to a bunch on Spotify, even if that's your main way of listening to it,
Yep.
even if you were going to continue listening to Spotify, maybe go over to the Bandcamp. They might have a download for $5. Just
Yeah.
tip the band for the album that you've listened to 30 times. Like
Indeed.
they probably deserve it. Because they're guaranteed that those 30 plays got them about 1.5 cents from Spotify, less than that. So
Exactly, because I think that it's like it's maybe easy for people that don't really think about it too much to slip into the trap of thinking, "Oh, I pay $10 a month for Spotify." It's like, yeah, you are paying something, but it's not going to the bands. And if it is, it's
yeah,
like a tiny, 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 tiny fraction.
yeah, it's negligible. So yeah, and I try to bear that in mind too when there's something, because I do listen to Spotify, and I have various services and things, and yeah, when there's something that I've listened to a bunch and I'm like, oh, I haven't actually bought this, I will
Yeah,
try to go buy it. Yeah, I mean, try, or if it's a band that is coming to town, if I go see a show and I know I've listened to their album a lot, I'll buy a shirt. Like that's, I want to
yeah,
support the band, so it's in one way, buy a piece of merch. It doesn't necessarily matter. You don't have to buy the LP and only listen to go ahead, listen to stream it's fine. But like if you then can take a few bucks and just buy the download, even if it just sits in your computer and you're still listening to the stream, great, fine. But you've helped, you've contributed, you make it possible.
yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned the fact that you've got a few dates coming up in June. So in general, like, in terms of people keeping track of the forthcoming release and just in general, whatever like shows, news, etc., what's the best way for people to do that when it comes to Drouth?
I mean, it is a more fragmented kind of, I feel like show listings and sort of the centrality of show listings has become a bit more fragmented as kind of social media isn't quite as centralized. Facebook used to be the way that everyone announced things and did their tours, and obviously before that, bands had their own websites and things like that. Our Instagram is always current. That's kind of the one choice that we've made to have a social media outlet. So we announce shows, and we're active on Instagram. Our drummer Pat, is responsive on there, and is always posting stuff. So we make announcements there. We don't have a ton of other places where we specifically announce things. We'll put stuff on Bandcamp, and again, when you have followers on Bandcamp, it's great that when you put out new releases, they get notified, the word gets out that way. Obviously that's
Yeah,
a small fraction of the people that maybe listen to us, but Instagram.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That's just yeah. Social media. Actually, I just
yeah, it's
wrote.
awful. It's awful. We
Yeah,
hate it, and
yeah,
it's likewise for me. Like I do have an Instagram for my own artwork as well, but would I have one if it weren't a professional necessity? No. No, it's
yeah.
it's it's not really a worthwhile
I feel you.
use of time.
I totally feel you. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
but here we are. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to suck it up a
Exactly,
little
and
bit.
we have to get it out. We have to get it out somehow, and it is unfortunate that social media over and not any one outlet in particular, but over the last 20 years has really degraded the centralized kind of. There used to be an alt weekly paper,
Mm,
or a couple in Portland that was just the show listings. If you all every band would put their show, make sure that their show was listed. You're an idiot if you didn't, make sure to get it listed in the alt weekly, so you could go to the back page and see the weekly show listings and know what was happening. Nobody does that anymore because people don't read the paper anymore. So that's not there. There used to be a website in Portland that was specifically dedicated to punk and metal shows and stuff, but it was kind of run by volunteers, and it was a great site. But for whatever reason, kind of during the pandemic, it fell off, and now there isn't.
yeah.
So we don't even have a really easy, good way to look up what shows are happening. I miss shows all the time in Portland because I just
Mm,
don't know where to look. It's so frustrating because as a show attendee, I want to know where they are, and I have to rely on, like, hopefully one of the multiple Instagram accounts that I follow, I will actually see their post, which is rare. I will
Yeah.
actually catch them, and hopefully that they will be posting, they will have gotten notified about some show that's happening, because nobody's the authoritative show listing anymore. So, do what you can. We just try to put the word out early and often, and as much as we can, let people know that we're coming. But we still have fun on tour, and we still play to awesome crowds, and see friendly faces there, when we go back second, third, fourth time to cities, and seeing people that have come before. And that's awesome. So we're glad that people are one way or another manage to hear about it and keep up with us. Yeah.
Yeah. I like to think that as however inevitable these like great monoliths of like, the tech companies and the social media companies and all the rest of it, however kind of like all consuming they might see, I like to think that like, little grassroots of hope can still spring up in amongst this. And like, just because something
Yeah.
like you mentioned, like with the local like guides, just because that's gone, it doesn't mean that they can't come back again or something like
Yeah.
that. I'd like to think
Yeah.
that these
Yeah.
that these local movements can still spring up again in the future.
For sure, because people want to go to shows, people want to see shows, and want to be informed. And I'm certainly not the only one who's frustrated at
Yeah.
how kind of fractured and difficult it is to find that stuff. So I mean, these things have a way of, like you say, the roots are out there, and organically coming about in a way that works. And the social media is absolute hell. It's terrible. It's making the world worse. It's absolutely the worst thing that humans have ever devised. It's awful. But it's not the only possible future. I think maybe as it becomes increasingly useless in terms of actually facilitating human communication, and once people really um, get sick of how full it is of just AI slop and targeted advertising and propagandizing and bullshit, that maybe it's too much to hope for, but at least the people who care, people who want to pursue actual, real human communication, will start leaving it be, just putting it
Yes.
aside and finding other routes of
Yes.
interaction.
Well, Matt, on that just about hopeful note,
Yeah, trying.
thank
That's all
you,
we got.
thank you very much for your time. It was great to talk to you. Great to get your insights about the band and what you do. And yeah, I love the album. I think it's great. I hope it gets a great reception when it comes out.
Thank
And
you. Yeah.
yeah, thanks a lot.
But we appreciate the coverage, on behalf of everyone else in the band as well. Thank you for giving us a little bit of your time and coverage. It helps a lot. People find us in all kinds of different places, and we're always grateful when people, find it worth talking about us. So thank you.
It is my pleasure. In my tiny, tiny little corner of the underground, I'm very, very happy to promote in whatever way that I can.
Well, from our tiny corner to yours, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Matt. All the best.
Cheers. Take care.